Hello, this is Amy Fountain here, broadcasting from For the Love of Autism, and really excited today to have another conversation with Amber Black, another Insights with Amber Black. And today I am so excited because this is my absolute favorite topic. We are going to be talking about autism's role in humanity's spiritual evolution, also known as Ascension. And I just want to get right to it because we only have about a half hour and I want to get all this information in. I have some wonderful questions from one of our viewers that I'm going to integrate into the conversation. So let's get started. One of the biggest things that has come to me frequently over my journey with autism is that I've had this very unique experience with it. It has continued to show me the spiritual catalyst that it is in humanity's shift. So for those of you who are not totally aware of what I'm talking about, there is a shift in consciousness that is happening on this planet. And it looks like essentially us really understanding this energetic side of ourselves, kind of more, we've been very focused in the body, we've been very focused in the mind, a little bit in the heart, but mostly it's been very much about the physical. And anything that was spiritual, or like I like to call it sometimes simultaneously energetic, is an unseen aspect that was kind of left to religion and spirituality. But the truth is no matter what you believe as far as there being a God and all that sort of stuff, there is this agreement, I think, within humanity that there is this higher power, there is this essence, this soul that actually gives the body the life and the expression that it is. It's expressing through this physical vehicle that we live in. So truly, we're really not just these human forms. I mean, it's an impermanent thing, clearly. We are born and then we die, and some people believe we reincarnate. None of that really matters necessarily at this point. We might get into that a little more possibly in this conversation. But ultimately, I want to really highlight that there is a shift going on to where we are awakening to really who we are, understanding there's the more of us, that unseen part of us being a really integral part of this. And the way I have understood autism is through a lot of my Awesomism work. As an Awesomism practitioner, we align to ourselves. We do a lot of this inner work, this energetic work, that helps us to be in a place where we are integrated into our bodies. There are some times when we're lost in a thought and we literally jump back into our body when somebody's like, hey, I've got a question for you, or, where were you just now? So that's an example of what happens to some people that may be diagnosed or on the spectrum, and I want to talk about that as well, as it being a spectrum, a very wide spectrum, that we actually are all on, in some way, shape, or form. So I'm going to start out by asking Amber this question because she raised a point that there are two types of autistics. And I'll just segue it with autistics tend to not be physically embodied completely. They're not integrated in the body. And that's why often you won't see them behind their eyes. It's like they're in a whole other world. It's just a really tangible way to describe that. So Amber, can you share with us what you mean by that there's two types of autistics, and describe them?
What I mean by two types of autistics is you take autism as a whole and understand that in that whole you've got autistic individuals that have a purpose and another group of autistics that have another purpose. One of the purposes of one group, which is most of the population in the community of those whom have been diagnosed with autism, is that they are here to anchor a frequency on this earth to help within the ascension process that the entire planet is going through as a collective whole. And then you have another group, which is a few of the autistics, very few, that are here with the complete integration of anchoring the energy frequency from a very high vibration and being able to share and communicate in such a way to where their mission is not only to anchor that frequency here and embody it within the human experience, but to speak about it, share it, and really integrate the energy at 100% within the human expression of their existence.
Awesome. So I love that description, and you'll actually see more on this channel eventually about someone that I hold very near and dear to my heart. Her name is Lyrica Marquez, and she is a co-author with her mother, Gayle Lee, and they wrote a book called Autism, AWE-tizm, the key to our spiritual magnificence. And that book is amazing. We'll be doing a book club on this channel not too long from now, and Lyrica confirms exactly what Amber just spoke about. She is nonverbal. She is 39 years old, and she's a mystic in that she's come through and expressed kind of what's really going on in this ascension process. And when I read that book, I was absolutely activated. I was downloaded, and it completely helped me to understand more so how this process works and this role that autism plays in this ascension process. I want to talk a little bit about, and this is one of the questions from our viewer, the ascension and descension process. Because sometimes it's described in this way where the autistic often is descending, coming into the physical to then anchor this information. And someone might be viewed as a light worker or a neurotypical, just anybody that is more, okay, so that was descending. They're ascending. They're kind of going up into their awareness and consciousness, where the autistics that are kind of descending have this, they're pulling down and bringing the cosmic information, the divine information down into kind of the collective, and they kind of meet in the middle. So she wanted to know what your take or your opinion is on ascension and descension.
Okay, so for me to clearly answer this question based on my perception of what I'm hearing is, as the higher frequency being descends into the density of our existence here, what they are doing is pulling forth the higher frequency vibration of the origin and nature from where they reside. Within that space, what happens is you have input, output. And so as you have the energy that is descending down of a higher frequency, there is the output of the lower frequency vibrations that need to be pushed out of Earth, the atmosphere, this third dimensional reality, which in turn uplifts as the dissension comes down. The being uplifts in vibration because the lower frequency has been eliminated. There is an energetic and physical exchange that has to occur and rebalance into a place of harmony when this happens in the human form. Essentially then creating oscillation of the cells within the human vehicle at a faster rate. And this is also what brings us into a place of being disease-free, because in order for the cells to oscillate at a faster rate and for the DNA to be reprogrammed into a higher frequency, the frequencies that reside in a lower vibration are expelled, and those frequencies hold toxins and energetic codes that are what have anchored society and the existence into disease, suffering, and lower frequency vibrations of how we have existed as a whole. This is the process that begins to shift that frequency out and expand us into a higher light frequency vibration that is of love, compassion, healing, peace, and that is the direction that we are going, and that is ascension.
Beautiful. Oh, I love that. I love that description. and even how you got into the cells. Any of you out there who haven't seen the last video that we did, topic was something in regards to toxicity and the body. Go check that out. I'll put the link in the description below, because Amber is literally illuminating in the beginning. You know, we touch on that, on how she, in her process of integration of these high frequencies in the body, and the detoxing that she's done, and the integration of more, which frees up space and the ability and connections with the ability for more light, literally, to be in the body. I mean, where do you think that word enlightenment comes from? It actually means you literally are starting to house more light, and that's what's so beautiful about this shift, because it's not so much about, you know, astral projecting or going out of the body to then have this amazing spiritual experience. Now, this time in history, this shift in consciousness is allowing us to house that light in our physical bodies, to the point of where we actually have choice. Now, this is a ways down the road, and some are a little further down the path than others, but to where we can actually choose to be, you know, we can clear out disease and not get old and not get sick. I mean, there's some really interesting stories in history, and people would argue whether or not they're fictional, of human beings living to be hundreds of years old. And some of those stories are in the Bible, so I know there are people that absolutely believe that. And I think it's just a really fascinating understanding of kind of the more that's going on here. I do want to touch on this because this whole shift in consciousness is creating this awakening. A lot of people would recognize that word, whether they know what it means or not. One of my favorite teachers describes it as, you know, we're all human beings kind of in a human form. We're spirit having a human experience, walking around on this planet with bags over our heads because we've chosen to forget who we really are. But the awakening, I see it as you're taking the bag off your head and you're slowly starting to remember, oh wow, I can have this communication with these unseen parts of me. I can hear my intuitive guidance. I have that higher self, you know. And so it's just this amazing ascension process. And I love how you described that descending, how it was this like digging up and getting rid of essentially all of these lower vibrations that have really kept us prisoners in what I like to call the dark ages. You know, people, but I kind of think that we are moving out of the dark ages now, because we don't have to exist in a world that is full of rage and war and, you know, lack of peace and all that stuff, you know, because the light is all of those other kind of high vibrational good feeling words like peace and love and unity. So in regards to this awakening process, one of our viewers was asking about kind of the people that are waking up to their awesomeness, is how she described it. And what is your opinion, you know, for those with autism? Do they experience this in a different way? Is it similar? Can you maybe touch on that, the awakening process and the autistic?
Each one is going to experience that differently based on the contract of that which they entered this world in with. And that is in relation to the willingness of the biological family and that which they were born in with, and how they participate with that experience. The more willing the biological family is with the autistic in coming together collectively from a place of working together harmoniously, collectively, makes the process easier. The autistic is here to process out any low vibrational frequencies for the parents. And so with the willingness of the parents for them to look at what it is that needs to be healed for themselves, takes it out of the contract for the autistic to have to do on their own, in addition to being able to process and transcend into what they are here to do for themselves as well. So what they're essentially doing is taking on their own work plus the parents, and there's a lineage of 7 generations to come with that also. So parents who are willing to alleviate and shift the contract work, release the load, they actually ascend, they transition quicker, and they transition more easily. They collectively come together in a mutual place of participation, which is not resistance. When you have resistance and you don't want to look, you don't want to be responsible and acknowledge what is going on, that is where you see the malfunction. That is where you see the manifestations of the resistance coming out in physical form. And so the acknowledgement is what embraces what needs to be healed and creates a lot of ease in the experience. So both ascend, and they ascend faster.
Yes, yes, I can absolutely relate to that.
Did that answer the question?
It did. It did. It actually helped segue into kind of the next topic or, piece of this. So my experience as a mother has been, my child woke me up. He was a part of my awakening, and my first one. And what he did was he sparked this fascination of the new kids, this newer generation of children. And the more that I learned about autism, I started to, for a while, there was tons of resistance. I've had it in many layers and levels and still do. To kind of like, where does my child fit in? Because a lot of what my teacher in Awesomism, Suzy Miller, has talked about, I loved everything that she said, and it completely related to my child, but yet kind of she spoke a lot about autism. And so it was kind of like, where does my child fit in here? And one of the other questions that she asked was, that our viewer asked, is in regards to this spectrum versus neurotypical. And there was a delineation between neurotypical and autistic, and how there's a difference. They're kind of two groups of people. But in my work, what I started to realize is we have this spectrum, and if you're looking at it from a medical point of view, there are boxes that you check that then say, you have these symptoms, therefore you have this. It could be something like Parkinson's. It could be Alzheimer's, dementia. It doesn't really matter. The boxes are checked, and you are diagnosed with this label because you have those symptoms. And I started to see it as, okay, I'm like, okay, so these labels are a result of symptomology, of a collection of symptoms. So what does that look like when, like my son, for example, I feel like he's kind of on this cusp. If you were to really delineate that there's only this spectrum that goes so wide, here's the extreme and here's the higher functioning, nonverbal, higher functioning because you're verbal, But I started to see that he's kind of right there. He still has similar sensitivities that the autistics do. And then as I started to awaken and really open up to my spirituality, I started to realize that I had symptoms of autism, and a lot of people feel that way. It's even kind of a joke. Oh, that's my autism, even if you're not autistic. Because, before we got on the recording, Amber and I were kind of joking about this multidimensional way of being, where we're getting this information from over here, and then we're getting this information from over here, and it's our guidance, it's our connection to kind of that ascension piece, that higher frequency piece, where we're having more awareness of what's going on in the unseen. And it can be kind of confusing sometimes to assimilate that. I mean, that's what schizophrenia looks like. You get put in a mental institution because you're hearing voices. But what if those voices that you're hearing are part of your spiritual gifts, So let's talk about the spectrum a little bit. And this piece of, I started to see it's a rainbow. Another word for spectrum is rainbow. And I love my friend who is the founder of the Gifts of Autism has started to play with this whole calling it the rainbow instead of the spectrum. And how can we pull, and what colors are we? So where do the lines bleed? Do you see the lines bleeding between neurotypical and autistic? I mean, is this something we're doing side by side, or is this something that we're all a part of? What's that?
It's something that we're all a part of, but it's a continuum. There's a
Okay.
continuum that is in alignment with the frequencies that are being integrated by each individual and what that truth is for them and how it relates to where they are from. If I was to relate it to a rainbow, you can take each color and separate it out into the different levels of what the spectrum dictate based by diagnosis. As you were talking about symptoms being checked off to be provided with what the diagnosis is. One color would be ADD, which would be here. Another color in the rainbow would be ADHD, which would be here. Another color in the rainbow would be here, and that would be Asperger's. Another color in the rainbow would be here, which would be autism. Another color in the rainbow would be here. Is that the high functioning autistic? Or is it the color here that is the nonverbal, completely nonverbal? And what dictates that? Where are you going within the ray of the rainbow in the frequency that dictates the color of that rainbow? The new children coming in are of the platinum frequency, and they're going to be more quiet. What that means is when they are more quiet, the frequency is higher. It's a different level of wisdom. When you're quiet, you don't have as much ability within the human density, which is the human form, to be more high functioning, communicative. You're here, you're anchoring a higher frequency, and it is all you can do to manage harnessing that frequency. Discussion isn't needed because the energy is going into just holding that frequency, keeping it anchored in this vibration as best possible. Discussion takes away from the harnessing effect of being able to be present, to anchor that frequency to help everybody exist, which would take you back into the two types that are here. This one is just holding on to the frequency to help everybody shift. And that is all that individual is able to do because it requires so much power to harness a frequency in this low density as it comes down, to anchor it in such a way to where it radiates out and it expands and shifts everybody else so that they can ascend. This one doesn't need to talk. But the neurotypical needs to understand they need assistance to do their job. And that is just to be present, to help the globe, to help the world, to help humanity shift. It's the frequency. And that they have anchored within their human existence. So neurotypicals need to come into a place of identifying what that being is really truly doing from the perspective of our evolution, and assist them, care for them, love them, see them for the bigger, more grand experience in what is happening, and be a participant in what that is.
That's okay. I'm gonna have to watch that again so I can absorb it. You're talking about this quiet piece. I mean, is that where I find that, you know, playing with telepathy, that there is less words to be said.
They don't need to talk. It's all mind to mind.
Yeah, so a lot more gets said, right?
There's a lot more energetic transference between the neurological system within communication as opposed to verbal dialogue.
Cool. Well, we'll have another conversation more about telepathy because that's like a whole other subject in its own. But when you were talking about that quiet space, I was like, yeah, I can relate to that, and I know that it's like there's still a lot of information being transferred, but understood, just not spoken.
Yes, and the thing to understand is when you have an individual that is of a frequency of this magnitude, they're not caught up in all of the worldly ways of things that are going on. There's no interest for that. There's no understanding for it because the vibration is not in alignment with what those worldly systems and behaviors and beliefs are. They are here to do their job. They're very aware of what that is, and so they don't need to talk. They don't need to engage. They have an assignment. They know what that is, and they're fulfilling it.
Yeah, and they're also, what I can tell is they are still living in a human body, so they are very much human. They are very much experiencing many things that humans experience, and they need that nurturing and love just like any child or human being would.
Yes.
Okay. And we've just got a couple minutes left, so I just want to kind of wrap this up. But what I'm hearing you say is that we're all part of this spectrum. We're all part of this rainbow. There's different flavors. We all have a part in it. We have a very different experience. And we have kind of these kind of written contracts, let's say they're written in the stars, you know, that to come into this world and to object, for example, which this time in history, this shift is so much about the loosening and letting go of what's not working. You know, the systems that are in place are very dense. They're not run by not a foundation, but the integrity of love and beauty. It's more like, you know, perhaps it's based on greed, or it's based on, you know, I think a lot of it actually is based on greed, you know, and the material world, and making these things so important, not that they're not important, but so important that it outshines what else is going on, hence the topic that we're talking about, which is this unseen part of us. And so I really love how you laid that out. I thought it was really beautiful. So thank you for that. Really appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
I'm excited to watch this again because there's a lot of information in this conversation. So in light of the time, if there are any questions that any of you have, please comment below, like this video, subscribe to the channel so that you can get updates when we have more videos uploaded and conversations. And, you know, if you have any questions, please ask them, because we are happy to continue this dialogue. You know, we're sharing this information so it kind of gets the juices rolling and gets you all kind of tapping into this higher frequency that Amber's holding and all of our beloveds are holding, to help us really just kind of get out of this pity pot, get out of these stories that we're so attached to, and also assist our children in not having to work so hard in the energy by facing what it is that we have to let go of and clear as well. And I can say that in my life I've absolutely seen that happen, and it's liberating, you know, and it's not easy, I can say that, but you know, you have support. There are people like us out here rooting for you and holding that frequency. So thank you for watching, and we will see you next time. Have a great day, everybody. Bye.